Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. Well, actually, it's the evening time, right? It is the evening time here, Friday night, November 3rd, 2023. It's about 11:08 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the globe. Let's go ahead and check it out. 1.7 in the Hawaii area. Let's go ahead and dig into it, see what we got going on here. There's actually quite a bit of earthquake activity ramping up here across the globe here recently. I don't even know where to dig in. Here across the Kansas area, we did see a 3.4 earthquake in the Bennington area of Kansas earlier this evening. Also a little bit more further activity down here across the Wichita area, just west of Wichita, Kansas. A 2.5 coming in. Some unusual activity out here across the state of Kansas. But I believe that's a general sign of stress out here against the North American plate, whether it be across the area of the plate boundary here to the west or potentially other areas. Either way, definitely seen some uptick here across this area, the center portion of the country. Texas has been actually been heightened earthquake activity here recently in terms of earthquake activity here across the oil fields of Texas. The latest one shows a 1.5. So we'll continue to watch this area. Of course, we got to remember the New Madrid seismic zone sits out here, and that's another dangerous fault system here across the area that covers quite a bit of population density out here. I'll show you guys the U.S. hazard map that sits within this red zone out here. And this is a center portion that looks like right around here, to be exact, but that's a major seismically active zone and potential hazard there for the U.S., aside from the West Coast, where we're still seeing some earthquake activity, including a 4-pointer up here outside of Los Angeles. I believe this is the Ojai area. 4.0 coming in earlier this afternoon was felt across a good portion of the area out there near the Sulphur Mountain range. A little bit of fault systems running through up here. A little bit of activity stretching down into the southern portion of the state as well. Overall, somewhat heightened activity out here across the North American plate here, just with a couple of those regions showing elevated movement. Mount St. Helens continuing to see some earthquake activity as well. Got about 7 earthquakes here, adding on to the, who knows what, a couple hundred earthquakes or more in the last 2 months of earthquake activity. So still continuing to see that. There's actually a really interesting article that the USGS put out in regards to the potential recharging of the Mount St. Helens area. I'll include that as an up next video here on YouTube. A little bit of activity stretching across the Aleutian Trench as well, although this is from this is about 24 hours old here, so some older movement quake activity there. We also did see some activity into the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, 5.1, and also a 4.8 here. This activity occurring roughly about the same time or after the Nepal earthquake. Now, this 5.6 struck here about 11 o'clock this morning, and this 5.1 about half an hour later. Now, when I was looking at the seismograph stations, I look at these things day in, day out. This earthquake actually looked a lot stronger than a 5.6. In fact, the looks like the EMSC model is still reporting a 6.2 on the globe. So that's quite a dramatic drop there in the magnitude. I was watching some P waves and S waves travel across this area, and supposedly it's from a 5.6, which is hard to believe. So I was kind of leaning more, and I'm still leaning more towards the 6-point range, but I'm not in control of the USGS when it comes to putting out that earthquake data. A little bit of activity, older movement there in Afghanistan from earlier this morning. One earthquake here from last night in Greece. Getting some deeper movement quakes back here in the Fiji Islands area. Again, the last 24 hours does show some movement here. Now, this is the a zone that does see quite a bit of deeper movement activity, but we're noticing a little bit of migration of that pressure drifting down here towards the New Zealand area. The Kermadec Trench showing some deeper movement quakes. with what looks like a 5.3 stirring up there. Let me bring up the GeoNet servers here real quick and see what they're reporting for the data across this area. 3.3, it looks like 38 minutes ago, but I know we had that at least a 5-pointer up there along the Kermadec Trench. I'm not going to go through over this list. It's just endlessly long. Looks like 4.2 10 hours ago, but we're definitely seeing some earthquake activity migrate there towards the south, towards New Zealand, so we'll continue to watch that for some possible adjustment. Aside from that, they're definitely noticing a seismic gap here across the Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea area, with a pretty good cluster once again across Indonesia Islands area westward up along the Java Trench. A little bit further up north along that plate boundary, we did see some, like I mentioned, a little bit larger activity up here. Looks like here on the Earthquake 3D globe, there's a newer quake here into the Aleutian Trench area, 5.2. Now, I'm not seeing it. It's possible it could be this 4.6. I don't know why there's such a difference here in terms of the magnitudes here between a couple of these agencies. You think they would all have a certain format to go by, but I don't know. But USGS is downgrading the earthquakes here a lot recently. Big Island of Hawaii seen a little bit of unusual activity as well, with an earthquake occurring. Off the Big Island area, west coast, 3.9. This originally came in as a 4.0. 41 kilometers deep here outside the Indianapolis Seamount area, but this is well underneath the oceanic crust. There's definitely something building out here, I think, underneath the Big Island region, and that is an area to watch here for some future volcanic activity. Mauna Loa showing some elevated movement, not to mention all the earthquakes swarming occurring underneath the Kilauea volcano. Let's go ahead and look into the latest information here. I want to see if the USGS put out anything on this. Well, they put out the Kilauea daily update, but really nothing in terms with the Mauna Loa earthquake activity here in the last 24 hours. This update was from yesterday, so it's not even worth looking at that because they don't mention anything in it. So let's go ahead and check out some seismograph stations and tilt meters and whatnot here across the area. Kilauea volcano has obviously been showing signs of uptick, uplift, and inflation. But over the past 2 days here, we're noticing that deflation event kick down, I should say. This is the past 30 days right here. Still elevated to an extent. It looks like maybe we're starting to go back up here in terms of this graph activity. So there's one area over here. Now we got this new earthquake activity stirring up underneath the Mauna Loa area. But it looks like, let me see what these are at. Looks like these are all over the place in terms of the depth below the surface here for these quakes. And the down to 30 kilometers or so, and some are relatively shallow. So it looks like we definitely do have some type of inflation going on here across the area. Now, I'm not for sure. There's a couple different measurements going on here. One going down, one going up. But it looks as though maybe it's a little bit of upward trend here in the last couple days. Notice that we're coming back down, and now a little inflation going on here across this chart. And that's just one of many out here that one can check in terms of tilt meters if they are working properly. Seismograph stations out here does show some of that local earthquake activity there around the Mauna Loa region. So I'm kind of curious to see what the USGS and the HVO, the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, will have to say about this new renewed earthquake activity up here across Mauna Loa, and whether it's in connection with all the activity there across the Kilauea volcano area. I think it is. Question is, how big is it going to be? How much of a magma influx is going to be occurring up here across these volcanoes? I mean, we're basically living in some pretty quiet times. Yes, we get some earthquake activity. Yes, we get some eruptions here across various volcanoes, but These certain volcanoes out here have a history of explosive type eruptions. Obviously, it took a long time to build out the Hawaiian chain. You can see it stretching out there. That's a hot spot. The Pacific plate moving over that hot spot. And no doubt Hawaii will be, well, future Hawaii islands will be further, I'm guessing supposedly probably out this way. Pending we don't get any interference with the Pacific plate as it goes about its course towards the northwest. What do we got here? One little earthquake in the last hour, 1.7. So yeah, we'll continue to watch this. I mean, we don't know for sure. We can't say what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. We just have to report and look at the activity. I'm sure the USGS is monitoring this movement here at Mauna Loa. And I want to check here and see if any of these have been reviewed. That's been reviewed. Looks like that has. So the depth there is probably going to stick. So I'm kind of curious as to why we're getting a bunch of deeper activity followed up by shallow adjustment. That could be maybe potentially going out on a limb here that this is a major influx of magma below this area. Continue to watch that and report back on it, folks. Across South America, a handful of earthquakes here, it looks like. Nothing big. Latest one of 4.8, Easter Island area out in the divergent boundary. 4.0 coming in right now to the, looks like down here off the coast of Nicaragua, potentially maybe Costa Rica. We have been seeing a little bit of elevated movement here across the area recently. And we'll definitely watch that. Let's see here. What else we got going on? Look at that, 6.2. That's just crazy. A little bit of movement outside of the Turkey area, Mediterranean region as well, the Atlantic Ocean. Iceland, well, Iceland's another story, right? The latest information here on the Rick James area on that volcano still sits at yellow. Was passed along a pretty cool website here from the Iceland folks on the volcanic unrest at the Rick James Peninsula. And this was updated about 3 p.m. my time, it looks like. There's definitely been quite a bit of earthquake activity. They're reporting around 1,000 earthquakes have been recorded, with 2 being above M3.0 and 2 above 4.0. The biggest earthquake of the earthquake swarm was measured at 8:06 and was 4.3 in size. So this is happening on previously known fissures where tension has been accumulating associated with plate tectonics and may curl due to tension from intrusions of magma. There are currently no clear signs of magma moving closer to the surface. Signs that magma is making its way to the surface would appear in shallower seismic activity increasing in tremor, which is a high frequency of small earthquakes. And we've seen that take place there across many different volcanoes. Sudden deformation of the surface should be measured with GPS measurements. And of course, it is monitored. Look at this satellite imagery here showing the displacement along that GPS area. That's obviously some swelling going on specifically around this area. Whether it's going to come up through those fissures or not, well, we will obviously be watching that and see how it plays out. But this site here is actually really cool. I'm still having some issues with this website. I'm not going to get into it right now, but as far as seismograph stations go and GPS, these guys do report quite a bit on here as well. This is the vertical displacement, noticing the uptrend here more drastically. That's actually pretty good. That's some really decent uptrend compared to like Kilauea volcano. This is a big time uplift going on there across the area of Iceland in this region. Again, vertical uplift, vertical displacement on that graph. And there is the area of interest on one of these maps. And again, we'll continue to watch that. All signs are obviously pointing towards an eruption, but the question is how soon. Magma accumulation is going on over here. Triggered earthquakes are right in this area. So there's a lot going on underneath the surface here. Continue to keep an eye on that, folks, I think, and And maybe a couple days, maybe sooner, this will be popping back up. But for now, the latest information is yellow alert on the volcano area, Wreck Janes area, right over here. That's the aviation color code at yellow. Last eruption was 1240, so we'll continue to watch this area and see how it plays out. Right? I think we're looking at maybe a good scale eruption going on there. Let's see what else we got. Space weather. Yeah, we have a couple different things going on right now. We do have a pretty large coronal hole, which is named 67. Here's the latest imagery from that right here. And that is in Earth direction. That does have an Earth-directed component here facing the Earth. So along with a couple other CMEs that have been blasted off a couple various different sunspot regions, we could be looking at some enhancements here to the 3-day forecast. I would say probably in a few days. Right now, we're not looking at anything major. But it looks like potentially on November 5th, maybe. Right now, this doesn't look like it's been updated. But potentially a glancing blow on the 5th. But also a potential uptick there following that from that coronal hole that's been facing us, or will be facing us. Actually, the latest imagery looks like it is facing us here. So we have a couple different components here to watch in terms of the potential for elevated solar weather uptick over the next week. I'll throw it out over the next week. And of course, we'll provide updates on that. There is a partial halo CME. Does have a little bit of Earth-directed component, but also at the same time, you got this coronal hole. So mix those in, and we could see a little bit of activity stirring up here. No promises. There's not set in stone. We've seen this, type of forecast before, where there's a lot coming, and then it completely misses us. But right now, it looks like we may be getting in for a little treat here in the solar weather department. Here within the next week. We'll continue to report back on that. All right, let's go ahead and look at the latest magnetogram image here of the sunspots that are currently facing the Earth. And see you later there across this area. This sunspot's heading off to the western limb. Not anything to worry about now. We do have a fairly active region here that has sparked off some low-grade M flares in the past couple days. That is still fairly dynamic. Look at that. There's quite a bit of intermixing there of those colors, indicating some complex structure. And we do have a name for that sunspot region, 3480. Welcome aboard there, 3480. Let's not let our aurora watchers down. The image over here does show quite a bit of bright UV filter areas here, UV rays. This is UV filter. Does show quite a bit of bright regions out there. So right now, 90% chance for a C flare. M flare, 40% chance. X flare still remains around 5% chance or so. But with 3480 on board, I think that's something to watch here in terms of possible stronger flaring, Earth-directed, hopefully. Definitely watch that and see how it plays out. Latest image here of some seismograph stations show all is calm for now. Storm Prediction Center and the Weather Department, not a whole lot going on. We do have some cold air coming into the Pacific Northwest, along with some chances of rain up here, mainly into Oregon and Washington. And I say that with hesitation because it makes me a little on the sad side that we're not seeing more of that here in Northern California. We may see some sprinkles, but for now, most of these low pressure systems are aiming right at the Pacific Northwest, bringing them quite a bit of moisture. I'm hoping that pattern changes here as we head into November. It looks like it may, around the 10th of November or so. Either way, I don't think there's any major high pressure building up out here. Let me check out the regional map, North American map here, the Assemble. We're gonna go with the GFS model, GEFS model here. There's that low pressure system coming in right now. That's on the 5th time period. It does enhance a little bit more. Looks like it aims right at the west coast area. That's a good sign because there's no major dominant dome of high pressure. I kind of call it the dome of doom. I mean, if you like sunny, dry weather and boring conditions, I guess that would be your type of or somebody's type of outlook. But I am not into that. It's wintertime. It should be treated as such. So it looks like that's going to continue here to at least maybe the 2nd week of November, followed up by another low pressure pattern out here across the west coast. And, we'll watch this right here. That's a fairly dominant high pressure across the United States around the middle of November. But I'm hoping that's going to be more over here. I know. Well, a lot of people like that dry weather, so maybe I'm doing them a favor by pushing that further to the east and allowing this trough to form further to the around the west coast. But we'll continue to watch that and see how it plays out. But the good news is there's no dominant pattern here. A dominant pattern would be high pressure parked over the west coast, no matter how far I look into the future. And we have seen that before. And that puts California and the west coast in a drought big time. But for now, things look like they're changing, and that's good news. We are in a strong El Nino pattern. It's expected to last through spring, and that's good news because our wet weather depends on what goes on out here across the Pacific, at least here in the California area. So yeah, I'm hopeful for some strong storms. I'm not even joking. I'm one of those people that I like to bring it on. I tell Mother Nature to bring it on, and that's hopefully what she will do. All right, what else is there, folks? But yeah, there's a lot of information on this site that a viewer passed along here. As far as news go, a lot of information on the Iceland meteorological website here. Because I still have issues with this one. But I'm going to switch over to this one and keep an eye more on the details of what's going on here across this volcanic area of Iceland. That's quite the uptick there, folks. We're talking about 50 mm, it looks like, or higher in elevated movement. Elevated activity here since the 19th to 31st of October, it looks like. That's some big-time magma brewing. So, eruption imminent. How big it will be? That's a good question. Alrighty, folks. I'm out of here. 11:30 at night. Past my bedtime. I'm not even joking. I miss the days of going to bed at 9 o'clock. Find myself staying up later and later, and it's not good. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow, Saturday. Maybe we'll barbecue. Maybe we won't. I might throw some chicken up there. That sounds kind of good, I think. Catch you guys back here tomorrow sometime. Enjoy your night.